Unsung Murder Ballads discusses topics of a disturbing nature.
And we're not going to hold back on the graphic details and disturbing content.
So we do not recommend our podcast for children under the age of 13.
And while we respect the victims and their families involved in these tragic cases,
we're also going to be critical of mistakes that are made during the investigations.
And we're going to use dark humor to express ourselves now and then.
So with that said, this podcast may not be for everyone.
And that's okay. We're glad you're here checking us out.
And if you've made it this far, welcome to the Unsung Murder Ballads family. And follow us on Instagram at Unsung Murder Ballads if you want to talk to us.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Unsung Murder Ballads. I am Janice Dead.
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
This week we want to give a shout out to Bronx Dead of the Dead Corps. He's been listening to every episode and gave us some interesting feedback, so thank you, Bronx Dead.
Woohoo, thank you.
He loves when all three of us are together in particular. He and I were on a long car trip to Pennsylvania to see the Dead Deads play last week, and we talked about episodes that he liked and how he says that when any one of us isn't here, it affects the dynamic and how much he loves it. So yeah, it was just really good info and it was a great conversation to have with him.
That's awesome. We love
feedback.
Yeah, and McQueen Dead of the Dead Deads, she's started listening, but she also said that she thinks me, Bronx Dead, and Jammer Dead of the Dead Corps should start our own podcast just because she had so much fun listening to us joke around that she wants us to just start our own podcast so she can listen and laugh her ass off. So,
that's funny.
Hilarious.
So we might do that. I'm thinking I might start a podcast that is just about the Dead Deads and the Dead Corps, and the three of us can get together once a week for an hour to shoot the shit and see how that goes. Yeah, maybe have special guests in like other Dead Corps and Dead Deads members. It'll be fun.
Hell yeah. More podcasts. That's what the world needs.
Well, the best part of that one is I wouldn't have to edit anything because it's just us sort of ripping on each other and having a good time. So it might be different.
Just some yapping. Hell yeah.
It's all natural, yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. But so this week, Jameson, you've got a case for us.
I certainly do. And this is going to be one hell of a ride. So strap in.
And this is a listener.
Trapped.
And this is a listener request, correct?
Not only one, but two listeners wanted this case.
Excellent.
Oh, that's what we're talking about.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Give the people what they want.
Exactly. Yep.
Take it away then.
So let's go. Ask anyone about full moons, and you'll get roughly the same answer. The full moon has the power to bring out the crazy in people.
You think?
We've believed this for a very long time.
Yeah, I mean, every time I have weird customers in my restaurant, I'm like, is it a full moon? Like, literally.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and every time I see a full moon, I howl uncontrollably. It's like this weird thing that just like happens, and I'm always like, huh.
Do you get really hairy or just howl?
The hair comes out a little bit more. That one could be just in my imagination, but I'm certainly howling.
All right, that's funny.
We refer to unstable people as lunatics. Now, lunatic, if you break it down, it's from the word luna, which means moon.
Yep.
So right there, even feeds even more into that. Science tells us that just as the moon pulls the ocean tides, it definitely affects changes in moods and behavior in us as well. This is where folklore and nightmares come into play.
Oh boy.
What is the one other thing that full moons make us think of?
Werewolves.
I was going to say,
There you go.
we just made the joke, yeah.
I'm with ya.
We're exposing Joyous as a werewolf.
Oh.
Oh boy. Science has tried many times over the years to explain our obsession with the wolf. One theory is a disease known as hypertriopus, sometimes known as wolfitis.
Okay. I'm now picturing Teen Wolf.
That was my first thought. Yep.
Wolfitis. That's hell yeah.
Yeah, let's go with it. That's whenever I forget to manscape, I'm just gonna blame it on wolfitis.
Oh God. Oh man. No one needed to know that.
Like, sorry, dear, it's wolfitis.
It's just my wolfitis acting up again.
It's-
My bad.
It's not me being lazy, I promise.
It is a condition of excessive and unusual body hair growth, often covering the person's entire face. Once again, Teen Wolf and those kinds of references.
Right, and
exactly what came to
a million other werewolf movies, yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Psychologists have actually come up with an official diagnosis known as clinical lycanthropy.
Like
Lycanthropy?
lycanthropy,
Yes.
yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Why do I know
Define-
that word?
Well, it's
So many
lycanthrope.
questions.
I'm glad somebody can do pronunciations better than I can, because I do
The
it
word I'm just
phonetically
hearing.
and I sound like an idiot.
No, it's okay.
You're good.
I'm used to saying lycanthrope because I used to play Vampire the Masquerade and the werewolf expansion to that. So lycanthrope is a word that we used to throw around all the time. So
Okay, well, good to know. So it's defined as a delusional syndrome where the patient believes that they can transform into an animal, but the changes obviously only take place in their mind.
that sounds like fun, though.
Right? Yeah, that's a hell of a trip. Delusions, though, have to start somewhere. So if you're having delusions of Napoleon Bonaparte, at some point you probably had some previous knowledge of who he was, or whatever you're obsessed with.
Right. It would be interesting if someone
enough.
had that delusion and didn't know who he was. That'd be cool. Yeah.
So it's fair to say that people that suffer from this, especially when it comes to the werewolves aspect of it, they definitely have heard about or seen something involving a werewolf, as they've been in TVs and movies countless times since 1913.
Yeah, I bet.
It's true. I knew kids in high school, maybe middle school, who full on claimed that they were vampires. And I was like,
Yeah, that makes me think of that case we covered with the girl who was dating a kid who said he was a 300-year-old vampire, Jasmine Richardson. The one where they killed her family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Ridiculous.
Now, what does any of this have to do with the true crime podcast? For that, we have to discuss the focal person of this case, Peter Stumpp.
Peter
But
Stumpp.
before
Okay.
Yes. And before I go into this, I also want to have another huge shout out to the two people that requested this case. That's awesome.
Yes, thank
Love
you.
the interactions and the case suggestions. Keep them coming. So, back in time we go. In 1582,
Wow.
the country of Germany. Yes, I know. We're going way back.
Love this.
So, Germany was being pulled apart by a war between the Catholics and the Protestants. And one of the small towns that played to both sides was the small town of Bedburg. Now, keep in mind, they were also dealing with the Black Death. So,
Tough time to be at war.
Yeah, right.
No kidding. The people back then understood death so well that it became commonplace to the point that they were just numb to it. So it would take something absolutely extraordinary for them to, be surprised and just like blown away.
Right, and
'Cause they
movies.
didn't at all at that point.
Right, and movies. This time period is always shown with people walking down the streets, ringing bells, and pulling carts with bodies on it, yelling, "Bring out your dead." So yeah, they were definitely accustomed to this, I would assume.
That is Monty Python.
No,
however.
it's more than just Monty Python though. They're like maybe
Okay, I believe you.
yeah, maybe it wasn't quite as obvious as that, but you know what I mean. Like they were
It was certainly the vibe.
Yes. Did I just quote Monty Python? That's a riot.
Bring out your dead. Ba-ding, ba-ding. Yeah, 100%.
Wow. Yeah, I'm confused.
So it started with cattle mutilations.
Oh, is that all?
Farmers from the area. Yeah, we're going right into it.
Well, let's rock.
Farmers from the area surrounding Bedburg would find dead cattle in the fields, and it started off as an infrequent thing, so it happened every once in a while. But then, unfortunately, it became a daily thing.
Wow,
For
daily.
weeks, it would happen.
Fuck.
The cows would be sent out to pasture, and they would be found torn apart as if a wild animal had attacked them. The farmers assumed it was wolves, but it didn't stop there. Children then began to go missing, and young women vanished from the main streets around Bedburg. In some cases, their bodies were never found, but those that were had been mauled in a violent manner. Finding cattle dismembered, that's one thing. It's horrifying. But when you find your wife or your daughter in the same state, it tends to send a little bit more panic, right?
You think?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a different beast, if you will.
So these people
No pun
spiral
intended.
into hysteria.
Yeah, I believe that it would create any kind of problem. That would happen today. Like if you were in if we're in Boston and people are finding mutilated bodies, that's a big deal, regardless.
Now, when we think of historical European paranoia, we think of witchcraft in the 15th and the 16th centuries with the witch trials and the hunts and the burnings. And that hysteria even jumped across the Atlantic to the British colonies, which affected so many more lives as well and destroyed so many other people.
Right, like the Salem witch trials and, even in the future, we jump ahead, we'll get satanic panic eventually.
Yes.
That's right.
And Janice, as you have picked up on our behavior here, you were a step ahead of me here. The Salem witch trials was the most famous of these examples, but at the same time, Europe was also in the throes of the fear of werewolves.
That to me is so bizarre, but you know what? It's the 1500s, so what do I know?
And you know what? I bet the wolves were meaner.
You know what? They probably were.
Some historians think that in France alone, there are about 30,000 people who are accused of being werewolves.
Wow.
That's
Yeah.
That's
impressive.
new information to me.
That's impressive.
Some were executed for it by either hanging or burning at the stake.
Interesting that folklore has kind of forgotten that you can kill a werewolf by hanging.
Yeah, it's funny. It's just too boring, I guess.
I guess so.
So the fear of werewolves was real, but it was really real in Bedburg. One report from this time tells of two men and a woman who were just outside of the city walls. And they heard someone call out for help. So one of the men went into the forest to try to go see what was going on, and he never came back.
Classic werewolf trap.
After the first man did not come back, the second man went in there to try to go and find him, and he also didn't come back.
How do they not see this coming? Have they not
Right?
seen a horror movie?
Yeah, it's so weird. They must not have.
It is the 1500s at this point, so.
Right.
The woman who was with them realized what was going on, and she tried to run, but something came out of the woods and attacked her. The bodies of the two men were later found, mangled, but the woman's body was never found.
Wow. That's like right out of a horror movie, though. Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, I will say, like, if I'm living at this time, I'm pretty convinced that there's a werewolf.
Yeah, a serial killer that's this savage would definitely come off as a werewolf. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Oh, definitely.
certainly we as human beings look for the most logical explanation, and in this case,
Yeah, werewolf. I mean,
Later, villagers would find several limbs near Bedburg, and the limbs were thought to be those of the missing people.
they really don't have any way to check that back then.
No,
Yeah,
not
just like
back then. It was all assumptions at that point.
Yeah, like,
it does look like my brother-in-law's arm, and I haven't seen him in a while.
I haven't seen him, and there's some arms laying around. I guess there is.
Another report tells of a group of children playing in the field near the cattle, and as they played, something ran into the field and grabbed a small girl by the neck, and before trying to tear her throat out, he picked her up and was threatening her and was being very malicious.
Oh, so now we're saying he, so they've seen that it's a person.
They're giving it a gender, which is interesting.
Out of all things, this girl's collar to her dress saves her life because it was too high, and her throat wasn't able to be ripped out.
Okay.
She she was able to scream, and because she was able to scream, the cows began to stampede, which frightened the attacker, and he ran into the forest.
This girl is saved by stampeding cattle.
Yes,
That rocks.
that and a high neck on her dress.
Yeah. Bizarre. I don't know if I'd believe that if I saw that in a movie.
Yeah.
I'd be
Truth
like,
is stranger than fiction, as
I'd
we
be like,
always
this
say.
is bullshit. All right, good to know.
So that was the last straw for the people of Bedburg, and they decided they were gonna hunt down the beast.
This sounds like the end of.
Go.
This sounds like the transition into the third act of Jaws, where they've had enough. They're getting into the boat. The orca.
Yes. According to a pamphlet from 1589, the men of the town hunted for the creature for days, accompanied by hunting dogs that they sicked upon the beast. So the beast was stalking another maiden, and they sicked their dogs on him, and the dogs finally cornered him. And when the hunters came to the spot where the dogs were barking, they were very, very confused because there was no wolf. There was a man that they all knew.
Oh.
According to the pamphlet, the wolf transformed into a man right before their eyes, as he supposedly removed a belt he was wearing and returned to his human form.
Whoa.
So he was wearing a magic belt that turned him into a werewolf.
Yes.
Okay.
That's nuts.
Okay.
Yep. Some of this is kind of eye rolling, and it's kind of like, really, what the hell?
But again, back then, the shit people believed, I'm not surprised by it.
Yeah.
I mean, we were just talking a couple weeks ago about the Bridgewater Triangle, and there was that belt that told the history of the Wampanoags, or whichever tribe it was.
Yes.
So for now,
Right, and you know what? I was straight up ready to believe it. So
so here we are. Maybe it's the same belt.
that would be crazy.
So, after determining, in fact, that it was a man and not the devil in disguise, they brought him before the magistrates to face.
Typical 1500.
Right? Yeah.
Exactly.
It's
Yep.
not
Is
Satan
this a
himself.
man or is this the devil himself?
That's actually, I like that idea for a game show. Is this a man or is this the devil?
Oh my god, amazing. I know a lot of people who should go on that
Yes.
show.
Actually, I want to go one step further. I think we should make, like, the game show should make people go out on a date. And then after the date, the
God.
woman has to answer, did you think it was a man or the devil?
What happens if she's wrong?
I don't know. We'll have to come up with something fun.
That's amazing. I like this. I'm in. I'll invest.
Nice.
So they brought him before the magistrates to answer for his crimes. This man was a wealthy, well-respected farmer by the name of Peter Stumpp. Now, who the hell is Peter Stumpp? Although
I was
records
about to ask.
from this time are scarce, it is widely believed that Peter Stumpp was born in 1535 in the village of Eprath, near Bedburg. At some point, he lost his left hand, leaving him with only a stump. It is assumed that his last name is not actually his last name, but a reference to his disability. As yeah,
That's
there were also other variations of it, as far as like stub and things along that line. So
Tough,
that was
buddy.
just further the cause of that probably wasn't his real last name.
But you know what? It makes sense, because if we're talking about like this story where he's a werewolf, and I'm sure it was added after the fact that someone claimed they saw him transform. So why not change his name to represent a disability? Because it makes the story,
True.
more interesting or something. I can totally see that. His last name's probably something simple like Smith or Fritzl.
Yeah. By his own account, Peter had a normal childhood and upbringing. Stumpp was a wealthy farmer, a widower with 2 adolescent children. He was generally well regarded in the community, but no one knew the perverse sickness that lurked beneath.
Interesting.
After the death of his wife, Stumpp carried on relationships with several women, including his mistress, Catherine Trompin,
Well, I sure hope he included his mistress in that.
We
Imagine
were
carrying on and not even including your mistress,
well having an
Yeah, right.
affair and not including your mistress.
right? That's like so rude.
Like, it was fun while it lasted, but
Now you're just gonna sit here and watch.
Oh, God.
Yeah. What an asshole.
He also allegedly began an incestuous relationship with his daughter, Sybil.
Oh, gross. Okay, well, now he can go fucking die.
Right, but again, we're talking at a time period where that may or may not be true. You know
Right.
what I mean? Because those kind of
If
charges
this
are,
is true,
yeah,
he can go fucking die.
yeah. Well, if he's killing people, he can go fucking
This-
Mm-hmm.
die.
Yeah, this is true. There's lots of reasons that this guy can go fucking die. Great talk.
This may or may not be true, as Stump's interrogations involve torture, and they may have just added that aspect to it to make him look like a more monstrous person.
Exactly.
Yeah, they do be doing that.
Yeah.
Torture's not a good interrogation method. We know this.
I mean, they did accuse Anne Boleyn of having sex with her brother to, basically push King Henry VIII down the path of executing her. So,
This is true. They were doing that kind of shit.
yeah, it's around the same time period.
It is claimed at the age of 12, Stumpp began to practice occult black magic, and according to Stump's confessions, this would eventually lead to a face-to-face with Satan.
Well,
Yep.
straight to the big
Yeah.
man himself.
Yep.
Oh my
Going
god,
right
Satan
up.
just sent me an Outlook invitation. That's crazy.
Right? Jesus, you got to be careful who you invite to things.
For real.
During the meeting with the devil, he was
So hard to-
Peter.
Sorry.
I know. I just had to. I can't believe what I'm saying as it's coming out. That's why there are little pauses. I'm like,
Oh, man.
really? Like, come on.
Well, as soon as
Truly.
you said it, I just heard "running with the devil." Sorry.
So during this meeting, Peter was given a magical girdle or belt that allowed him to transform into, quote, the likeness of a greedy, devouring wolf, strong and mighty, with eyes great and large, which in the night sparkle like fire, a mouth wide with most sharp and cruel teeth, a huge body with mighty paws.
Yeah, I've heard this fan fiction before.
Yeah, I was just thinking, wasn't that Mary Shelley? What?
Whenever Peter removed the belt, he would return to his human form. He told the men that captured him that he had taken off the belt, and the men were sent into the forest to try to retrieve it, but it was never found.
Yeah, of course not.
Still superstitious and fear-driven, the torture and interrogation of Stumpp, because he was being interrogated so intensely, he confessed to horrible, unspeakable crimes. Stumpp told his captors he would often walk through Bedburg and wave to the families and friends of those he killed. And it delighted him, he said, that none of them knew he was the killer.
Oh.
Isn't that crazy?
That's hard. Again, I go back to, I understand this is the 1500s, right? And I understand he was interrogated pretty brutally, but even Ted Bundy didn't boast about that directly to authorities. To sit there and be like, I enjoyed relishing in the fact that I killed these people's families and I'm waving to them in public. I have trouble believing that.
Yeah.
But who
The
knows?
people of Bedburg had believed that they were dealing with a bloodthirsty wolf. They had no idea that the predator walked among them. Sometimes he would use his walks to pick out his future victims, planning how he would get them outside of the city walls where he could, quote, ravish and cruelly murder them.
This is all weird shit to admit. It's like all weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
again,
he had no problem admitting it. He's just like, okay, whatever.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is it him saying this out loud, or is this some guy turning a knob that's drilling something through his palm that's saying, "Did you relish and enjoy this?" You know, like, do you see what I mean?
Right. It
and-
does reek of that.
Yeah, that's where
I
going.
feel like it's a little bit of both. I feel like there are some aspects of this that he truly got pleasure out of.
Yeah, and that's not unheard of. I mean, we've heard these stories time and time again.
Yeah, I mean, he's probably the killer, right? He's probably killing people and children. And, he was probably escalating his crimes. But do I believe that he admitted to, enjoying it? I don't know. Maybe.
Right.
Especially if it's the church that's torturing him this way, because they were hell bent on, getting people to admit some crazy shit. No pun intended on that.
I was about to call you out for it.
While in wolf form, Stumpp attacked and mutilated wild animals such as sheep, lambs, and goats, and would devour their raw flesh. He would
Okay,
stalk,
he's strange, that's for sure.
he would stalk his unsuspecting victims, often young maidens, and would, when the opportunity struck, he would strike. And Stumpp claimed that he would sexually assault these women before he mutilated them. And many of the victims disappeared and were never seen again.
So
Ugh.
I'm picturing he maybe had a wolf pelt that he wrapped around himself, and that in his head turned him into this predator. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like he needed it for whatever psychosis he was going through.
Okay.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
He even claimed to have eaten unborn children ripped straight from their mother's wombs.
Yeah. Yeah, I go back to that one.
So,
that one reeks of Inquisitor. I'm just saying.
yeah.
You're right, it does. It has that sort of a je ne sais quoi.
Yeah. Nice.
As we stated earlier, he would sometimes attack a group of children playing in field, causing them to scatter. He would focus on one of them, overpower that one, while the others fled. According to one of the surviving records at the time, which was a 16-page pamphlet from 1590 that was translated from German and published in London, read, quote, "In his wolfish shape, he would run among them, and while the rest escaped, he would lay hold on one, and after his filthy lust fulfilled, he would murder them presently."
Oof.
He had murdered 13 young children and 2 goodly young women in the most bloody and savage sort, and after ate their hearts. This was...
Oof.
You're right. Yeah, sends shivers down your spine, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If it's true. I'm sure some of it is true. The eating of the heart
Right.
thing,
And I mean, some of it's things that we've heard, like, perfectly really.
true. But again, I'm picturing the times, but I guess he could eat their heart. Maybe he does eat it raw. I don't know. I just imagine that wouldn't sit well. But again, he could really, really be sick.
He did not say that it sat well.
No.
He made no such claim.
You're right. He did not.
Now, there were some children, like the girl with the high neck dress, that did survive and were able to make it out. But unfortunately, there were some that weren't as fortunate, one of those being Stumpp's son. And although it is said that Stumpp was loving and nurtured his son and cared about him a whole lot, his bloodlust at this point was just beyond anything. And one day, he enticed his son to come with him into the forest. And according to records, he then put on the belt, came the wolf, and mercilessly devoured the boy.
Ugh.
Interesting. I'm wondering if his son was the first human victim, and maybe he concocted the whole idea of turning into a werewolf using this belt as a way of separating himself from it.
That is an interesting theory.
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning.
I can see that. There wasn't much of a trial for Peter, as he supposedly confessed, and in reality, he was probably just a serial killer. And I say that not in a light term, but...
Right, of course.
Right. Yeah, I mean, he most likely wasn't a werewolf.
Yes.
I mean,
just a serial killer, and that he's not a literal werewolf.
Although,
Probably.
Who knows? He might have been the last werewolf. We don't know.
What?
You're right. We don't know anything for a fact.
He probably did kill his son, women, children, and may have done so in a gruesome fashion. He may even started with killing animals and worked his way up to that. We will never know the full story because, once again, torture was involved, and you can't take anything that anybody says under duress seriously.
Yep.
You'll say anything to get out of that kind of pain.
I always wonder if I could do it. Like, I've always wondered if someone was torturing me, could I actually withstand the amount of pain and not give up whatever information they want me to? I don't want to find out
Right?
the hard way.
No.
but-
What do you think?
I
the greatest
definitely
one?
wouldn't be able to deal with it. I don't have to wonder. I am a little bitch.
Well, I can take a lot of pain, and I'm a stubborn bastard, so I wonder sometimes.
That is true.
So
I feel you might last longer than most.
maybe.
However, guilty of some, none, or all of these crimes, the people of Bedburg executed Peter Stumpp anyway.
Good.
On October 31st, 1589, which was Halloween of all days.
Of course
Perfect.
it was.
Now, this is just crazy because I never would a normal person think this is fair and just, but apparently back then it was. He was given a fair and just punishment. Stumpp was tied to a wheel where he had hot burning pincers placed on 10 points of his body that would pull the flesh off the bones.
Ooh.
Oh, fun.
Oh, it's not over.
Great.
After this, his arms and legs were broken with the blunt end of a wooden axe, and then his
Oh.
head was cut off with a sword. But
Oh.
we still weren't done yet.
Oh.
They then burned his body at the stake and put the wooden wheel that he was attached to in the center of town and mounted it on a tall pole topped with the statue of a wolf.
Oh.
Bizarre.
Now,
It's very Middle Ages of them.
Yeah, I was like, it's definitely fucked up.
tell me what you think. Do you think that's an example of cruelty of mankind? You know, what do you think it was just? Do you think they're crazy? What are your thoughts here?
That probably was about right, I guess.
I was going to say, if he killed children, especially if he sexually assaulted them as well, then he deserved the torture part of that. The contraption at the end is a little extreme, but hey, maybe the local carpenter just needed work. I don't know.
Yeah, and who am I to tell him?
Right.
He shouldn't have a job. That's none of my business.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Well, here's the crazy part, and where things got a little bit worse. Stump's mistress and daughter were both tried and both found guilty of being complicit in Stump's crimes somehow.
What?
Not quite sure
Wow.
how, but they were found complicit.
Yeah, that's bad shit.
They were sentenced to be burned alive at the stake.
Wow.
What the fuck? Okay, yeah, that I do not condone. His daughter was a victim.
The only thing I can come up with for their thought process is obviously they believe that he sexually had a sexual relationship with his own daughter. And obviously we've got this mistress here. So if he sold his soul to the devil, then by having intercourse with them, they are suspect in the eyes of 16th century Christians.
I can see how they would make that argument. Yeah.
Yeah, they're now tainted, therefore can't be trusted. Burn them alive. I can totally see that.
Yes.
Terrifying.
Plausible.
So, in closing, I think that this just proves that humans are the real monsters in the world.
You think,
Ain't that the truth?
right? Oh,
And
man.
that-
We create these monsters as allegory for
Yeah.
the
Oh,
true
yeah.
horror that is humanity
Yep.
and
Absolutely.
inhumanity.
You mean
And that is the case of Peter Stumpp.
nice. Well, thank you, individuals, for recommending that one. That'll fuck me up for a couple days, I think.
Yeah, thanks so much for that.
Yeah, that just blows my mind. Like, I'm, I know we'll never know how much of it is crap because of the interrogation, but it's definitely a unique thing to look back on. Like
Oh, yeah.
the idea that the last piece I think is the most tragic, that they're killing victims, and his mistress had nothing to do with anything. She just made the poor decision of sleeping with him.
Right. And damn, she even got ditched.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And his poor daughter. I mean, but
Yeah.
But at this point, like, let's book. I want to take it into. I want to put it in a historical context. So she's his daughter. I think you said they were adolescents, so she's young-ish. Her brother's been murdered. Her mother died at some point. Her father's now a serial killer, accused of being a werewolf, executed. She probably didn't have much of a life left after that anyway.
You
True.
got a point.
So
Yeah.
maybe it was a mercy in a way. I don't know. I don't know. It's tragic regardless.
We could certainly tell a story of to that note, but
In fact, that almost inspires me. I think her story would make a great movie in and of itself.
Oh, that would be great.
You know, the werewolf story, all that stuff's on the periphery until the end of the story when she realizes it's her own father.
Ooh.
But then she's put to death. Oh, what a fucking story that is.
oh yeah.
Yeah, I like it. Maybe I'll write it.
There you go.
Any listener, don't steal that. That's mine.
Don't steal
Copywritten.
this
Yeah.
public domain.
Yeah,
story
right. Oh shit.
From me.
All right. Well, that was awesome. Thank you for Jameson for presenting that to us. Appreciate that. It was a good
Yeah,
one.
that was a heck of a ride.
It's funny how we in modern times we look back at that werewolf shit and we laugh at it, but it must have been terrifying to the people at the time.
Right, yeah.
Absolutely. And I stand by the fact that, like, in their worldview, that was more plausible
You know what?
than a serial killer.
That's true, because serial killers were relatively unheard of for a long time, even after that. Yeah.
Like with the evidence they had access to, who am I to say that wasn't a perfectly reasonable conclusion?
Right. A demon, werewolves, the devil, it all. Yeah, you're right. That's their repertoire, because they probably can't read. They're probably being taught these superstitious things by the church regardless. So yeah,
Right, and even if they could read, what are the sources that they're reading?
Exactly. That's
Like-
Right, exactly.
yeah, so it's crazy. You're right. That's the best they could do, and maybe and I'm being too hard on them. I'm realizing. So you're right.
Yeah, like, I mean, even like the idea that this man is like depraved. What would we call him now? Like, I don't know, sociopath, murderer, or whatever. Like, demon possessed kind of means the same thing.
You're right.
And it has different like connotations to us, but that is what it means
That's true. You're right.
effectively.
Yeah. No, that 100% agree with you on that one. I like that this case made us think of this differently. I like that.
Definitely. Yeah, it's always great
Thanks
to
for
look at it from different points of view.
Yeah, thanks for the thought-provoking case.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So that will wrap up this week. Once again, I am Janice Dead,
I'm Jameson Dead.
And I'm Joyous Dead.
and we'll see you next week.
Bye!